My name is David. I'm 38 years old, and if you had asked me a few months ago, I would have told you I had it all. Not just the success, the money, the properties, the empire, as Jessica liked to call it, with that breathy laugh that used to charm me. I thought I had the future, the partner, the life I'd worked so hard to build, finally ready to share it with someone. Building that empire wasn't handed to me. It was sweat, blood, and years of grinding. I started fresh out of college with student loan debt and a beat-up Ford. My first project was a condemned duplex that smelled like mildew and despair. I lived in one room while I renovated the rest, learning plumbing from YouTube and roofing under the scorching sun. Friends were out partying. I was laying tile. I bought more properties strategically, carefully, taking calculated risks that paid off. I built relationships with contractors, lenders, and tenants. My portfolio grew from small residential flips to multi-unit buildings, then expanded into commercial spaces. It wasn't glamorous work, not the kind you see on reality TV. It was spreadsheets, permits, tenant calls at 2 a.m., and the constant stress of loans and deadlines. But it was mine. Every square foot represented a challenge overcome, a goal achieved. It wasn't just wealth. It was tangible proof of my resilience, my vision. 2 years ago, I met Jessica. She was the event planner for a swanky business awards ceremony I was being honored at. She was the picture of sophistication, flowing gown, radiant smile, effortless grace. We talked for what felt like hours that night. She asked about my work, not just the success, but the process, the challenges. She made me feel seen, admired, like I was the only person in the crowded room. "It's so inspiring, David," she'd said, her eyes wide. "Building something from the ground up. It's real. So many people I know just inherit things." Her world seemed so dazzlingly different from mine. Champagne receptions, designer clothes, exclusive parties. But she seemed genuinely drawn to the gritty reality of my work, or so I thought. Looking back now, with the clarity of hindsight, the red flags weren't just there. They were practically slapping me in the face. Her spending was significant. Every dinner was at a high-end restaurant. Her wardrobe seemed to refresh weekly with new, expensive pieces. She talked constantly about luxury travel, high-end cars, exclusive clubs. When I asked about her own finances, her answers were always vague. Family trusts are complicated. The luxury market is volatile. Investments are tied up. She portrayed herself as comfortable, but subtly hinted that she needed more stability, a solid foundation. I interpreted this as her wanting a secure future with me. My best friend, Mark, is a sharp corporate lawyer. He's seen the worst of human nature in boardrooms and courtrooms. He met Jessica a few months into our relationship. After a double date, Mark pulled me aside, a serious look on his face that instantly put me on edge. "Be careful, David," he warned, his voice low. "She's charming, absolutely, but she has a laser focus on your assets. The way she talks about your properties, your future projects, it's not just admiration for your hard work. It's calculation, like she's appraising inventory." I felt a flicker of defensiveness. "She's just interested, Mark. She respects what I've built." Mark just nodded slowly, not convinced, and changed the subject, but his caution stuck with me, a tiny pebble in my shoe I chose to ignore. My younger brother, Tom, is a cybersecurity analyst. He sees patterns and threats where most people see harmless data. He's quieter than Mark, less outwardly cynical, but just as perceptive. When he saw pictures of Jessica and me on a weekend getaway to a ridiculously expensive resort she'd insisted on, he just smiled thinly. "Looks costly," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Hope you did your due diligence, Dave." I laughed it off, calling him a typical skeptical tech geek. My friends and family were just being protective, I told myself. They didn't know the real Jessica, the woman who seemed to see something special in me, not just my balance sheet. 18 months in, I proposed. It was at a beautiful spot overlooking the city, a place I developed years ago, adding a touch of personal history to the moment. I got down on one knee, poured out my heart, told her I wanted to spend my life with her. She cried. She said yes. It felt like the culmination of everything, the hard work finally leading to a shared future. The ring was substantial. 2 carats, flawless. It cost me a significant chunk of change, requiring me to tap into some business reserves briefly. Jessica had subtly shown me pictures of rings her friends or acquaintances had, mentioning minimum standards for a respectable proposal. 30 seconds after I put the ring on her finger, before we'd even finished embracing, she was angling her hand for photos, capturing every facet of the diamond under the light. Within minutes, the pictures were on every social media platform she used, tagged with hashtags like hashtag engage, hashtag future misses, hashtag dreams do come true, hashtag he did good. The influx of comments was immediate, overwhelming. Hundreds of women I'd never met gushing over the ring, calling her a goals. A tight, uncomfortable feeling settled in my chest. It felt less like celebrating us and more like showcasing a trophy. But I pushed the feeling down. This was normal now, right? The wedding planning intensified that uncomfortable feeling into full-blown anxiety. The budget, initially discussed as something reasonable for a comfortable future, ballooned exponentially. Jessica insisted on the most sought-after venue, requiring a massive deposit. The caterer was Michelin-starred. Her dress was a custom creation from a designer whose name I couldn't pronounce, costing more than a luxury car. The guest list grew, filled with people I'd never met, mostly her social and business contacts. Her parents, Evelyn and Robert, contributed a fraction, a token amount that barely covered the flowers. Yet, Evelyn, in particular, was heavily involved, almost dominating the planning. She'd attend meetings with the wedding planner, scrutinize invoices, and constantly compare our choices to those of truly prominent families. Evelyn had a way of smiling sweetly while making subtly cutting remarks or asking probing questions about my financial preparations for the marriage. Have you considered consolidating your assets, David? It makes things so much simpler. Or, of course, you'll be updating your will to include Jessica? With your portfolio, it's simply practical. It felt less like gaining a mother-in-law and more like being vetted by a potential business partner's demanding accountant. The wedding date was set for late May, 6 weeks away. The stress was immense, but not just from the planning. I was neck-deep in my biggest project yet, a large commercial mixed-use development downtown. It was the culmination of years of strategic acquisitions and planning, securing the final round of financing, managing construction timelines, coordinating with anchor tenants. It was consuming all my time and energy. The closing date for the final parcel and the main construction loan was scheduled for early June, right after the planned honeymoon. This project represented a massive leap forward for my business, but it also tied up a significant amount of my liquid capital in the short term. Jessica, meanwhile, seemed increasingly distant. Her schedule was packed. Late nights, weekend, work emergencies, impromptu business trips to other cities. When I asked about joining her for one, she'd quickly dismiss it. "Oh, you'd be bored, David. It's just industry stuff, or it's really more of a team-building retreat. Partners aren't invited." Our physical intimacy became almost non-existent. She was always tired, stressed, or had a headache. I told myself it was the pressure of the wedding, her demanding job. I wanted to believe everything was fine. Small, unsettling details started to surface. Transactions on our joint account for vendors I didn't recognize. Unexplained charges on credit cards linked to wedding expenses. When I asked, her explanations were always ready, smooth, and just plausible enough to quiet my concerns. A forgotten deposit, a last-minute change, a payment her mother asked her to handle. I pushed down the nagging feeling that something was off. I was busy, stressed. It was probably nothing. The week before her bachelorette trip to Miami, a lavish, week-long affair she'd planned meticulously, I finished early at the construction site. It had been a brutal week, dealing with a concrete delay that set us back days. I was exhausted and missed Jessica. I decided to surprise her. I stopped at her favorite gourmet market and bought the ridiculously expensive imported cheese and the bottle of rare Italian wine she loved. I just wanted a quiet evening together, a brief escape from the wedding madness and work stress. As I approached our apartment door, keys in hand, I heard her voice. It was coming from the balcony off the living room, carrying clearly through the closed glass door. She was on the phone, laughing, That high, bright, slightly artificial laugh that used to charm me, but now sounded sharp, brittle. My hand paused on the doorknob. I decided to wait, to not interrupt, to just slip in and surprise her. Honestly, Michael, the ring is vulgar, but the look on his face when I said yes was absolutely priceless, she said, followed by a peal of laughter that sent a shiver down my spine. Michael? The name hit me like a physical blow. She mentioned a Michael from work sometimes. He's just so naive, she continued, her voice dripping with contempt. Talking about his empire, his legacy. He actually thinks I care about damp old duplexes and zoning laws. It's almost sad. My blood ran cold. I stood rooted to the spot, the cheese and wine suddenly feeling heavy and absurd in my hands. The wedding is just a formality, you know, she said, her voice dropping, becoming more serious, more chillingly professional. It's the down payment on the real prize. Evelyn was right. Get the certificate, go on the honeymoon, make sure there are plenty of photos for the optics. Then BAM. Hit him with the papers the moment we get back. Before that big downtown project closes. Michael, you've confirmed the timing? His capital will be tied up, his assets less liquid. That's when he's most vulnerable, least able to fight back effectively. Evelyn, her mother? She was involved? And Mark? She mentioned Mark earlier? I must have misheard. My mother has been invaluable, Jessica confirmed, erasing any doubt. She connected me with her lawyer. He's a shark, exactly what we need. He's already mapped out the strategy. We'll argue incompatibility, emotional distress, irreconcilable differences, whatever gets us the best settlement. With his real estate holdings, we're talking about a minimum of half, Michael. Maybe more. Enough for us. Enough for you and me to finally live the way we deserve. The pieces clicked into place with sickening speed. The spending, the secrecy, the distance, Evelyn's probing questions, the rushed wedding timeline, the focus on my assets. It wasn't stress. It wasn't ambition. It was a calculated, cold-blooded con. They saw me as a mark, a target to be exploited and discarded. 3 years of pretending, she sighed, a sound of weary performance. Pretending to be in love, pretending to care about his work, pretending to want that life. She laughed again, a sound devoid of any genuine warmth. It's been exhausting, honestly. The bachelorette trip is perfect timing. Gets me out of town, gives you and Evelyn clear sailing to finalize everything on your end. Just a few more weeks of playing the loving fiancé. Almost there. I couldn't hear anymore. I backed away from the door on numb legs. The cheese and wine crashed to the floor, forgotten. I turned and fled the apartment building, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. I walked blindly to my car, got in and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. I couldn't look at her, couldn't breathe the same air. The man I thought I was, the life I thought I had, shattered into a million pieces. I ended up at Mark's place. He was surprised to see me, showing up on his doorstep unannounced, looking like I'd seen a ghost. David? What in God's name happened? He asked, ushering me inside. I collapsed onto his couch, shaking. He got me a glass of water, sat patiently. The words tumbled out, raw and broken. I told him everything I'd overheard. Jessica, Michael, Evelyn, the plan, the money, the timing. I expected anger, pity, maybe even a hint of "I told you so." Mark listened, his expression shifting from concern to intense focus. When I finished, the silence hung heavy in the air. He didn't offer platitudes. His eyes were sharp, assessing. "Okay," he said finally, his voice calm and steady. "Okay, David, this is bad, very bad. But you know now, that's the crucial part. You found out before the wedding, before she could legally tie herself to you and your assets. You're on the cliff edge, but you haven't fallen yet." He stood up, walked to his desk. "This isn't just a broken engagement. This is premeditated fraud, possibly conspiracy. We need to move immediately. We need proof, and we need to secure your assets before she makes a move." That night, fueled by Mark's terrible coffee and a cold, hard resolve that was replacing the shock and pain, we started building the counterplan. Mark, the legal strategist, outlined the steps, protect my finances, document everything, gather evidence, plan the escape. Evidence is key, Mark stressed. Your testimony is strong, but we need concrete proof of their intent. Texts, emails, recordings, anything Tom can find. First thing the next morning, I called Tom. I laid it out for him, holding nothing back. He listened in stunned silence. They try to run a scam on you, Dave, he said, his voice full of disbelief and anger. After everything you built? Okay, I'm in. Whatever you need. I gave him everything I could think of that might contain digital footprints, passwords, access to shared cloud storage accounts, her old laptop she sometimes used at my place, even access to my smart home system logs, thinking maybe she'd used voice commands or left digital trails I hadn't noticed. Tom went to work, disappearing into the digital ether for the next 48 hours. While Tom was digging, Mark and I focused on the financial lockdown. It was a race against time. We worked with my banks and financial advisors to fortify my personal and business accounts, redirecting income streams, reviewing asset structures. Mark advised on legal maneuvers to make certain assets less accessible or harder to claim in a potential legal battle. We analyzed the joint account, noting the suspicious transactions. Mark deemed it a sunk cost. Better to lose what was in there than risk her having a legal claim to larger funds. Then Tom called back. His voice was tight with controlled fury. David, Mark, you need to see this. What Tom had found was staggering. He'd cracked into a shared encrypted messaging chain and a hidden cloud drive used by Jessica, Michael, and Evelyn. The level of detail, the callousness, it was sickening. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet itemizing my assets, calculating potential settlement amounts, outlining legal strategies to maximize their payout. Communications discussing my routine, my financial habits, how to manipulate me emotionally. Twist 1. Michael wasn't just a casual fling. He was a sophisticated partner in the scheme. Twist 2. Evelyn was a full, active participant, advising on legal and financial tactics. And then came the truly damning discovery. Tom found evidence, spanning years, of Jessica and Michael attempting similar scams with other men. Dating profiles, old communication logs, discussions about previous targets. Twist 4. Evidence of past schemes and potential serial con artists. This wasn't about a failed relationship. This was their profession. They are predators, Mark stated, his voice cold. They saw your success, David, and targeted you like prey. This evidence changes everything. We can not only defend you, but potentially expose them. But buried in the recent messages was a new problem. Jessica and Michael were getting nervous. Had David seemed distant? Was he asking too many questions? Michael urged caution, suggesting they move up their timeline. Access a large sum from the joint account under the guise of a final wedding payment, and initiate the legal separation while Jessica was still on her bachelorette trip, making it look like I had caused a split by having second thoughts while she was away. Twist 5. Accelerated timeline bottleneck. They're planning to hit the joint account and make their move within the next few days, Mark said, looking grim. Before her trip is even over. That means you have maybe 48 hours tops to finalize everything and get out. The pressure became almost unbearable. I had to accelerate my plan, secure the rest of my essential belongings, finalize the legal protections Mark was putting in place, arrange for a discreet move, and all while acting completely normal around Jessica. The facade was wearing thin. Every interaction felt like a scene in a terrible play. I went home. Jessica was bubbling with excitement about Miami. She showed me pictures of the villa they'd rented, the clubs they'd go to. She talked about the wedding, our future, completely oblivious that I knew everything. It took every ounce of my self-control not to break down, not to lash out. I just nodded, smiled weakly, and made non-committal noises. That sounds great, Jess. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of frantic, secretive activity. Packing when she was out, coordinating with a small, anonymous moving company for a late-night pick-up the day after her trip started, securing a short-term lease on a nondescript apartment downtown where I could lay low, moving essential documents and valuables to a secure location. It felt like I was living a double life. One foot in the false reality I shared with her, the other in the cold, hard truth Mark and Tom had uncovered. The The morning of her bachelorette trip arrived. She was up early, bags packed, friend arriving to pick her up. She gave me a big hug, a practice smile. "Wish you were coming, babe. See you in a week. Try not to miss me too much," she chirped, grabbing her ridiculously expensive suitcase. I watched her go, a knot of dread and grim determination in my stomach. This was it. As soon as her car pulled away from the curb, the operation began. Mark was ready. Tom was monitoring. The movers arrived within the hour. We worked swiftly, efficiently. Every piece of furniture I owned before her, every book, every photo, every item of clothing that was mine went into boxes. We also carefully packed and documented her belongings. The designer bags, the jewelry, the expensive clothes she'd accumulated on my dime. Mark insisted on cataloging everything with photos and serial numbers where possible. We were leaving nothing to chance. We cleared the apartment completely of any trace of my life with her. It needed to be a stark, undeniable statement. As the movers finished, leaving the apartment echoing and empty, I performed the final act. I took the thick binders of printed emails, messages, and spreadsheets Tom had compiled. Their own words, their own plans, undeniable proof of their conspiracy. I laid them out on the bare dining room floor, a monument to their deception. On top, I placed the empty velvet box that had once held her engagement ring. And next to that, I placed a single sheet of paper. "Jessica, I overheard you. All of it. Your plan with Michael, Evelyn, the targeted properties, the accelerated timeline. Every cruel word, every calculated detail. I have the proof. All of it. You didn't marry an idiot. Jessica, you try to con a developer. I build empires from nothing. I don't let opportunistic parasites steal them. Consider the wedding canceled. Consider yourself exposed. David." I took one last look around the empty space that had been our shared home, a place now tainted by betrayal. I felt a profound sadness, not for the life I was losing, but for the illusion I had believed in. I changed the locks. The apartment was secured. Mark's team simultaneously sent official notices to her and her parents' addresses, outlining the cancellation and asserting my position, backed by the evidence of fraud. I spent the next week in the sterile anonymity of the downtown apartment, working, conferring with Mark and Tom, waiting. Jessica returned from her lavish trip on Sunday evening. The call started an hour later. My phone lit up with her name, call after call. Then the text began. Furious, demanding, utterly blindsided. "Where are you? What is going on? Answer me. David, this isn't funny. Where is all the furniture?" Then the text that confirmed she had found what I left behind. "You sick bastard. What is all this paperwork? What have you done? You went through my things. You can't do this. This is illegal. You think this changes anything? My lawyers will ruin you. You stole my life. You stole everything from me. Michael and my mother will make you regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I read them, a cold, hard satisfaction settling in my chest. She knew. She knew I knew. And she was panicking. I blocked her number, Evelyn's and Michael's. The fallout wasn't contained. Jessica, Michael, and Evelyn didn't just disappear quietly. They initially tried to fight back, claiming I was mentally unstable, fabricating evidence, abandoning Jessica without cause. They threatened lawsuits, attempted to smear my name in the social circles we shared. But Mark was prepared. He didn't leak everything publicly to the tabloids, though the thought crossed our minds. Instead, he used the undeniable evidence strategically. He initiated legal action against them not just to recover wedding costs, but for damages related to the attempted fraud. More importantly, he ensured the evidence found its way to regulatory bodies relevant to Michael's background, to law enforcement databases, and to the attention of other lawyers who had handled cases where Jessica and Michael were suspected of similar activities. Twist 5. The exposure led to broader consequences beyond just their failed attempt on David. The truth, backed by their own words, spread like wildfire through the interconnected, gossip-driven world Jessica operated in. Clients vanished. Social invitations dried up. Her meticulously crafted image of success and desirability imploded. I heard through Mark that Michael faced investigations into his past financial activities and Evelyn's reputation within her own circles was severely damaged. They didn't get away with it. The empire they tried to steal became the instrument of their downfall. For me, the immediate aftermath was a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had won. I had protected what I built. My financial future was secure. But the cost felt immense. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving a scar on my ability to trust, to open up to someone. The world suddenly seemed like a more dangerous place, full of hidden traps and smiling deceivers. I'm still building. The downtown project closed on schedule, adding a new, significant asset to my portfolio. I'm back to the familiar rhythm of deals, construction, and planning. But the joy is different now. It's tempered with caution. The walls I built around my business assets feel necessary, but I worry they've also extended around my heart. People tell me I was lucky, that I dodged a bullet, and I was. But escaping a trap doesn't heal the wounds left by the attempt. I saved my empire, yes, but rebuilding my faith in people? That's a project with no clear blueprint, and I'm not sure where to even begin.